Hi everyone, welcome to November already. Can you believe we're at the end of the year? If you don't already know me or this is your first time watching my messages and transmissions, I'm Katara. I'm an intuitive, a healer, a drum maker. I am a cosmic weaver. I am many things, but I'm just here to hopefully inspire with some messages and to share a few energies of the day. I always like to have a few messages that have been pertinent and really coming through for me for the month and share a bit of song, my dragon song, as I call it. So stay tuned. What has been going on? The first message I have to share with everyone is let contrast to show you the way. And navigating the difficult conversations, let contrast show you the way. And what I mean by that is the theme I was really getting was actually there's so much shadow work that needs to be done. There's so much of my own shadows that were coming up to be looked at. What was so in my blind spot that I really just couldn't get to why I have those behaviors, why I had those patterns, and how can I overcome them? But rather than being all cliche with using the word shadow work, even though that is what it is, I think sometimes it's really good to just be aware, of that duality, light versus dark, light versus the shadows, but allowing and knowing that when there is contrast, it is actually super beneficial and super needed so that we can actually see, so that we can actually be aware of those contrasts and how they can help us to learn about ourselves. At the end of the day, I think our whole healing journey is about knowing thyself. Knowing ourself creates awareness, creates consciousness of the thing. And that is the key to help us to unlock more potential, to unlock the future, to unlock what is hidden. So rather than judging ourselves or even having that view that, there's always something to heal, what about is just simply so simple that the contrast allows us to see. The contrast is what shows the path to walk on. And so the last couple of weeks, I've been really eyes wide open. Some very stark contrasts have shown me that sometimes in our own awareness that we think we're on top of it, we're on top of our healing journey, we're on top of being able to look at ourselves and say yes to a healing session, say yes to working on patterns, but there's always going to be things that cannot be seen. And it's not getting reactive and triggered by these contrasts that show up, but really to be able to be witness, to be the observer as it's happening. And that's helped me incredibly. So rather than going right back into that loop of, well, generally when this happens, I'm going to have this kind of reaction, we want to cultivate a response. That's how we can actually overcome our shadows. That's how we can overcome our difficulties, to cultivate the response. So there's been a lot of really uncomfortable conversations lately. And it is being able to really go deep, ask the questions, so I'm talking about, let's say, in a relationship, whether with your beloved, with your friends, even with a colleague, whatever relationship, right? Like we can know ourselves through how we relate to others in our relations. And so it's through these enlightening conversations and asking the right question with the objective of, let me just be the observer. Let me just witness the thing that is going on. Let me just witness how is that situation perceived and getting clear about it. And how did you feel when that was said? And what did you mean when you said this? And what did you think I meant when I said this? And really looking at something 360 to help me to navigate through these tricky conversations, but deep and meaningful, because through conversation, through connection, through not taking things personal, and through that loving intention that we are here to probably help each other to see things, to know ourselves. So that's my first really important takeaway for myself that I offer to you. Really let contrast light the way forward for you. And that's how you can navigate tricky conversations, but allow them to be deep and meaningful, because there's going to be big keys to help you unlock things to yourself. There might be some big keys to help you to unlock why you behave and why you react in a certain way. So let's weave in some sounds to give ourselves the permission to allow that. Because often if we're looking at not so great things about ourselves, we get defensive, we get protective, and that's surely how I can react at times. So let's welcome in some expansiveness and some permissiveness, permission that we give ourselves that we can just be stable and grounded to witness ourselves, to be ourselves, but to witness ourselves. I want you to breathe into the heart and let it expand. And know that anyone's sharing of their perspectives and that their views of you is simply but a perspective. And that you, and when you are centered, when you are in your light, when you're in your power, it's like other people's reflections do not change your essence, do not hinder who you are, but actually help you to create more awareness, to create more consciousness around, and this is how I can relate to people, and this is how I am making people feel. And you become aware of the conscious choice that you have on how you would like to continue or not to continue with that. And I want you to breathe deeply and breathe down into the root and down into the solar plexus, and feel and know that this power to simply be allowed to be who you are and to allow people's perspective of you, and not to need to feel that you need to justify or defend who you be. So this is also a message, a message I'm channeling through of like, really just trust and know that you can be you, and that is enough. That is enough. How people are responding to you, it's actually their thing, but it is their thing to help you to know more of you. It is their thing, their judgments, their perspectives, their views, right? You are perfect as you are. You are perfect as you are. The second message I have today is keeping it human to keep it real. Keeping it human to keep it real. Now, it's also a big learning point for me, and in particular this month it came through as well. So my brand, my podcast, my website is all called Awakening Dragons. For those who've been following me for some time, you will know that dragon is a big part of my life. I am a dragon. Finding that expression of what does that mean, right? In human form, what does that mean? It can mean many things. But when I say keeping it human to keep it real, it means even when we uncover our wonderful cosmic connections, even when we are remembering our divine gifts and skills, all our psychic senses, our ability to connect to spirit world, our ability to be with the dragons and off with the fairies and talk to the trees and all the things, right? Because it's all the things. I love those things. I do those things. I practice those things. But it's really important that it's not the be all end all of every day, of every conversation. It is not the be all end all of how you may decide to relate to others. So what I mean by that is there was an observation through by someone close to me that said, you don't like to have conversations that are not about dragons or not about crystals and not about healing. Like, what about just having a normal conversation? And I actually took offense to that, because my response was, that's not true. I actually think I'm very multi-dimensional for sure, but also I think I'm quite broad and can relate to anyone. And yes, I like to have those conversations, but I certainly wouldn't want to be so narrow that every conversation, everything was only that. But I realized that it was, again, sometimes a perspective that some people might take or that you might give off. You're only thinking about, oh, what am I going to channel today? What am I going to tune into? What am I healing today? What shadows am I working on? Right? What's spirit saying to me? What are my guides saying to me? So remember that, yes, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, having a human experience. I'm going to underline that and bold that. Don't let all of the other worlds take over everything. Don't give your power away to, well, my guides told me to do that. Well, I got my insights and my intuition. It told me to make that decision. Well, I'm just not going to show up today because I'm not guided to. It's really important that we have a balance of this world and all the other worlds. It's really important that we are able to find and to remember that ultimately we're connecting to the other worlds to help us to be better humans, and live amongst each other with more peace, with more love, with more connection. I think that's very critical for us to weave this skill so that all of humanity and its consciousness and all we be can rise together. Because if we're too often the fairies and not grounded, if we're always up there, well, are we really here? And are we actually allowing that expression to be channeled? Are we allowing the messages to come through, to be embodied and to be expressed in a way that people can actually get it? And that's why sometimes, even in these transmissions, I try to keep it real. What's the message that people can actually listen and hopefully apply somewhere in their life? To me, it's not enough just to talk about dragons all day long, even though I love them and they guide me. It's like, how does that help me to be a better human? So remember that, keeping it human to keep it real. Lastly, I want to say that as we enter, I guess, this season, for me, I'm in Italy, Northern Hemisphere, so we're going to go deeper into autumn and, winter's around the corner, but I feel like everything is slowing down. So self-care, self-love, how does that show up for you? How does it look for you? You need to make sure that you are taking care of yourself. If the solar flares and astrological alignments, everything is really bringing up things for you, remember to come back to self-care. What do you need? Self-love. How do you put yourself first? And it's gonna look like different things for different people. I'm not talking about just taking time out. I'm not talking about just getting a manicure and eating your favorite food, right? It may mean radical changes in your schedule, in your day-to-day. It may mean getting used to not having so many clients, not having so much on. It may mean more spaciousness and more time. Like, these are just some of the things that have come up for me and have been sometimes challenging to fully accept. But self-love was the self-talk to say it's okay not to be productive and not have to work so hard. It's okay not to have to do so much, or that my priorities now are shifting because many things are shifting. So just a reminder to everyone that, especially for those who are so committed on their journey, on their self-healing and on their personal and soul development, keep it real and never forget to self-care and self-love, and to know what that means for you, to know what your needs look like. Okay, let's just make some sound together and to seal that in. And again, it feels like a theme of giving yourself permission to allow all of that, right? Allow things to be, to allow things to take the time that they take, to allow things to unfold, to be patient with self. Giving yourself lots of love. So visual I'm getting is more like a funnel opening around your head and allowing this beautiful divine light to come filtering in. Oh, wei, ia, sa, su. Ea na na, ea ya 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 so ea tare, ea to ea ya sho yenta, ea raro ea sa, ea taro amea. Ea ta ea o ea so ea ho. You are loved. You are being cared for and looked after. And you are exactly where you need to be. Sending you lots of love. Thanks for tuning in.